نعم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Inshallah, we're going to go over, after we went over the fact recently, how the fi'l madi is mabni. Some of them are mabni ala sukun. Some of them are mabni ala fatha. Right? Some of them are mabni ala wow. And then we talked about the fi'l amr. Right? The fi'l amr last week. We talked about how it is mabni, as long as it is sahih al-akhir. Right? How the command verb is considered mabni. This week we're going to talk about some of the fi'l mudari being mabni. When is a fi'l mudari being mabni? If we remember, we said al-kalam is three types. Al-fi'l or al-ism, al-fi'l, and al-harf. We said that the harf and the ism are mabni. And we said that the fi'l mudari, or the fi'l, is divided into three. Al-madi, al-mudari, and al-amr. Right? And we said, or no, I'm going to go back. I got to fix something here. That I said that some of the asma are mabni. Some of the asma are mabni. I'll draw half a circle, because some doesn't mean half of them, but some. And we said that the fi'l madi is mabni, and that the fi'l amr is mabni, meaning they never change. The endings never ever change. Most of the asma, most of the nouns, they change, but there are many who don't, such as hada, hadihi, asma'ul ishara, the words this, that, these, those, they don't change. Alladhi, alladhina, allati, allai, those do not change. Haulai does not change. Hadihi, hada, dhalika, tilka, they do not ever change, no matter where they're at. And we'll talk about that, because we're inshallah going to cover two sections today, because they're both brief, and one of them is just a repeating of what we've gone over. Right? And then there are other names which are mabni, like huwa, anta, right? Nouns, other nouns, huwa, anta, anti, ana, nahnu, they never ever change. No matter what position they're in, their endings are never going to change. So some asma are mabni. And we're going to find today that some mudari are mabni. Only most of the mudari, and say most of the asma, are mu'rab, meaning they change their ending depending on where they're at in the sentence. But if we look at this chart, then we see at least 60 or more percent of our words, types of words, not our words themselves, but types of words, are mabni. Right? Most of them are mabni. They do not change depending on where they are and what their function is in the sentence. Only 30% or so, 30% of types, not of the number of actual words, but of the types of words, change. Right? And so this makes things a lot easier when we learn what the huruf are and how they are, and what the fi'l amr is and how it is, and the fi'l madi how it is. Then it makes things a lot easier. Only some asma and some mudari' we have to deal with. Now today what we're going to learn is those mudari' which are mabni. Right? And there are two types, or two conditions of them being mabni. So if we look at this, لأستمعن النصيحة لأستمعن النصيحة ليذهبن الغلمان ألا تستريحا يا سعيد ألا ترحمن هذا المسكين. Okay. لأستمعن from seen meme ain to listen, istami' to listen, from sami'a to hear, istami'a to listen. This noon with the shadda there, do you remember what it's called?
No, can't think of the name of it.
We haven't covered it a lot inside the texts, inside the matun that we're reading, because it's not said a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's called Noon al-Tawqid. Here, al-Thaqila or Muthaqqala, right? Either one, right? Al-Thaqila or Muthaqqala, right? Or Mushaddada, meaning heavy. Heavy, the Noon al-Tawqid. So this is a emphasis here, like, and listen to the nasiha, but with an emphasis. Astami'anna, that I'm listening to the nasiha, like this. لَيَذْهَبَنَّ, same thing. This noon, al-tawqid, al-thaqila or mushaddada, the one which is, it has extra emphasis. That the boys went, right? Or let the boys go, whatever. La tastarihan ya Sa'id. Ala tastarihan, do you not rest, O Sa'id? Here, this is noon al-tawqid, but khafifa. It does not have the shadda and the fatha on it. It has a sukoon, right? It's called noon al-tawqid, a khafifa, the noon of emphasis, right? And won't you have mercy upon this poor person? Ala hadha miskin. La tarham hadha miskin. Will you not have mercy on this miskin person, this poor person? All of these are noon al-tawqid. These two are mushaddada or thaqila, and these two are khafifa. Right? That's what these noons are called there. Right? Then we have this category here, and we talked about this before, but they're just emphasizing it again a little bit. At-talibatu, the female students, yastami'na an-nasiha. Yastami'na an-nasiha. This noon is called the noon of niswa, or the feminine noon. The feminine noon, noon and niswa, because we're talking about females here, right? Here we were talking about me, astami'an, I listen, yadhhab, this is he, tastari is for you, anta, right? And ala tarhaman, this is again you. So here we're talking about I, he, you, right? First person, third person, but present tense. Here we're talking about females. These are all singular. Over here, this column is singular. These are females, plural. An-nisa'u yadhhabna, the women went. This is the noon of niswa. Ala tastarihna ya fatayat, won't you guys rest, O young girls? That's the noon of niswa, talking to a group of girls. Ala tarhamna hadha al-miskina, the same sentence almost. This one says ala tarhaman, this one says ala tarhamna. This is the noon of niswa. Will you girls not have mercy upon this poor person? Right? Now, what does this mean? Like I said, today it's going to be easy. It's not that much. If we add the noon al-tawqid to a present tense verb, right? If we add noon to tawkid, whether it be thaqila or khafifa, the heavy one or the light one, the light emphasis or the heavy emphasis, doesn't matter. That noon, if we look before that noon, all of them have a fatha. Always. If we add this noon to tawkid to a present tense verb, right? Then that verb, that present tense verb, is going to be mabni ala fatha. Right? It means it's always going to have that fatha in front of it. If we have the noon and niswa, then if we look before that noon and niswa, every time is a sukoon. When we add
why you call it Allah?
Mabni ala fat, ala fatha. Meaning it's going to be built upon a fatha. It's going to be mabni on a fatha.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking, like sukoon and all that. Okay.
الاتصال نون التوكيد.
No, it's going to be mabni ala fatha.
But I'm thinking just like you said, like kind of such and such, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
If we add the noon and niswa, then it's going to be mabni ala as-sukoon. Ala sukoon.
Mm-hmm.
And my pen don't want to write over there. Whatever. I'll write smaller. Right? Here, these are mabni ala sukoon. Any other, no matter what I put in front of these verbs, no matter what function that they have in a sentence, if it has the noon and tawkid, if I put kana, or if I put li'anna, or if I put lam, or whatever, if I put len, if whatever comes in front of it, whatever function it has in a sentence, it's always going to have that fatha on that letter before the noon and tawkid. And no matter what I put in front of this present tense verb with the noon and niswa, no matter what function it has in a sentence, it's always going to have a sukoon before the noon and niswa. Always. Any other present tense verb, meaning regular present tense verbs like he is writing, yaktubu, right? Yaktubani, yaktubuna, right? If we look at our chart, if we were to make a chart of yaktubu, yaktubani, yaktubani, yaktubuna, yaktubuna, and we say taktubu for she, tak for sukoon, taktubu, yak or taktubani, no problem. No, yaktubani. It's gonna be yak. Two.
Yak.
Yeah, yaktubani. It's two, right? Then yaktubna. Yaktubna. Right? They wrote, female. Then we say taktubu, for you wrote, again. Taktubu and taktubu, they're both the same here. Taktubu, you just have to know from the contents. Is it you, masculine, or is it she? You have to know from the contents. Yaktubani, or taktubani. Right? Taktubani. Right? Taktubuna. And if you follow access to Quranic Arabic, then we're dealing with most of this, right? taktubina. Taktubina. You writing. You're saying that to a female, right? Taktubani. Taktubani. And
taktubna,
taktubna. Taktubna.
aktubu,
Right? Then aktubu. Naktubu. There's our chart. Right? Okay, now. This is the noon and niswa. This is the noon and niswa. We see a sukoon in front of it. Those two verbs, when we added that noon and niswa, whether it be yaktubani or yastami'na, as we have here, or tastarihna or tarhamna. This is the third person. These two are second person. Right? Doesn't matter. We added that noon and niswa. That's mabni ala sukoon. If we add the noon and tawkeed, thaqila or khafifa, right? Then before it is going to be a fatha, always, if we add that to any of these. Right? If we add that to any of these, then it's going to be that. But in and of themselves, all the rest of these, right? All the rest of these, they're all mu'rab, meaning you can change, you can put something in front of them, which is going to change how they look. So for instance, I could say, Len aktub. Len aktuba. Aktuba. Because I put len. Len makes with the verb after it mansoob. I could put lam yaktub. He didn't write. And the lam makes it majzoom. So I have a sukoon there. If I did it before taktubina, then I would drop my noon. There are different ways I drop my noon on these duals here. I drop my noon on these plurals and I add an aleph when they become medzum or mensoob. And we'll learn all of that. But these, all the rest of these can change except those which have the noon and niswa. And if I were to add the noon and tawkeed to any of these other ones that do change, then they're going to become mebni due to the addition of the noon and tawkeed. Right? They'll become mebni ala fatha. So for instance, I want to say, I wrote whatever, aktubanna. Aktubanna. I wouldn't say aktubunna. No. Aktubanna, and it has that fatha there, or aktuban. Aktuban, it still has that fatha there, right? Now, like I said, we don't use the noon and tawkeed a lot, so that's not that. But when it does come up, we have to know that first off, all fil madi are mebni. How are they mebni? Some of them are mebni on a sukoon. Some of them are mebni ala fatha. Some of them are mebni ala dhamma. Right? Fil amr. How are they mebni? We need to know those different states, how they're mebni. Fil mudari. Fil mudari in general is mu'rab. They can change by being something in front of them in the function that they have in a sentence. However, those fi'l mudari that have the noon and niswa, meaning the third person plural and second person plural for the female, then they're mebni ala sukoon. And if I add a noon and niswa to any of the other ones, it's going to become mebni ala fatha. The qaida يبنى الفعل مضارع على الفتح إن اتصلت به نون التوكيد. That the fi'l mudari, the present tense verb, is mebni, becomes mebni upon a fat. Or here we could just say fatha for easiness for now. In, if, or when it tasalat bihi nun tawkid, when or if the nun tawkid is connected to it. Wa yubna ala sukun, in it tasalat bihi nun niswa. And it's built upon a sukoon, it's mebni upon a sukoon if the nun and niswa is connected to it. And it is mu'rab in anything other than that. That's our rule. Right? So when we look at this chart, when is the fi'l mudari mebni, right? Nun at-tawkid.
ونون النسوة.
Right? And Noon and Niswa. I'll try to fix that time marbuta there, right? Noon and Niswa. That's when. Everything else, all others, right? All others are Mebni.
معرب.
Mu'rab, yes. Jazakallah khair. Mu'rab. Tayyib, Abdullah?
No.
Like I said, what does that mean for us right now? It just means that we remember that rule and that when it comes up, really I'm putting them quotations there because normally they would write a noon, a niswa, like that. But I'm just putting a noon for the letter there, right? So I'm putting the quotations. That means, do we need to memorize this right now? Do I need to be able to make the i'rab of it? Do I need to say about this fi'l mudari mabni ala fath li'ittisalat bihi an-nun at-tawkid al-thaqil aw khafif aw li'ittisalat bihi an-nun an-niswa? La, I don't have to say all that right now. I don't have to learn all that. I just have to be aware that this is a rule. That when I look at my chart here, I know some names are Mebni, most of them are Mu'rab. All huruf are Mebni, meaning they never change. Mebni means it never changes. Mu'rab means the ending will change depending on what comes before it in a sentence. Right? Then we have the fi'l. It has three types. The mudari, the madi, the mudari, and the amr. The madi and the amr, they are Mebni. And the mudari is mu'rab except if we have connected to it the noon and tawkid or the noon and niswa. Simple?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds simple.
Sounds simple. Just takes practice. Now this one is real easy. Right? And it's something that we run into a lot, and so we need to cover it. Right? Okay. Anta rajulun muhadhabun. You are a disciplined man. Muhadhab from disciplined, right? Well-mannered, disciplined man. You are a man. Even if we took off muhadhab, no problem. You are a man. Right? Sa'adtu ha'ula'i masakin. I helped ha'ula'i. I helped these poor people. But I can take off masakin, no problem. Ataftu ala hadha al-marid. Ataftu ala hadha. I felt compassion upon this sick person, but I can take off the word marid, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that in a minute, just to make it easy, and then we can erase it, right? Or we can bring it back. La tashrabanna al-ma'a al-kadr. Do not drink water or muddy water. Al-kadr is muddy. Do not drink muddy water. I can take that off. Do not drink water. We'll just say like that, right? Okay, number 1, enter rajulun. Does this sentence begin with a noun or a verb?
Now.
No. As a pronoun.
No. طيب. Now, we said when a sentence begins with a noun, it's made up of 2 parts. What are they?
مبتدأ وخبر.
Mubtada wa khabar. Now we said the mubtada is always what? What case is it always in?
مرفوع. رفض.
Marfu. Now, our khabar here, we see the marfu. We see the tanween there, the dammatain. Right? So we see that. But the mubtada, our marfu, its sign is normally what?
ضمة.
A dhamma. But we don't see a dhamma here, right? We see a fatha. Isn't fatha is the sign of what?
رفع. ناسب.
Mansub normally, right? Mansub normally. But how come we have this? So no matter what I put in front of enter. So for instance, no matter what I put in front of here, if I said for instance, darabtuka enter. I hit you, and then I put the word enter after it in order to emphasize. I hit you. It still says enter. This is minka enter. This is from you, and I put enter after it. Now I have min here, which means from. So ka should change, right? Darabtuka, it should change because but if I said, no matter what happens, if I say enter, this is after min, this is a badal for min, so it should be a kasra. No. These pronouns never ever change. Right? Enter is always going to be enter, as we said. Some asma are mebni. That's why we have it in blue, half a circle here, because some asma are mebni. Enter is one of those. It's always going to be enter. Right? If we said, for instance, Muhammadun, Rajulun, Muhadhabun. Here we can see our obvious sign of raf. Our obvious marfu sign. The dhamma. But enter, and if I put something inna, or then in front of Muhammad, it would become fathas. And if I said min Muhammad, it will become kasras. Right? But enter, no matter what, is never going to change. Right?
Yeah.
Sa'adtu ha'ulai. I helped these. Ha'ulai, who did you help? You helped these. The object of the help is what? But what case should it be in?
Oh, fuck that.
ضمة.
It should be in mansub, right? No, the object of the
Yes,
verb.
Mansur.
Who did you help? You
Mansub.
helped these. Should be mansub. Our normal sign of being mansub is what?
Fuck that.
A fatha. Yet here we see a kasra. Why? Because ha'ulai is from those names which never ever changes. Right? It never changes. Ataftu, I felt compassion ala hada, upon this. I felt compassion on this. Hada is coming after what here?
After أرفض.
Allah.
After harf jar, after ala. Harf jar makes the word after it what?
كسر.
Mansur.
Majroor. Not mansub, majroor.
Oh, Mansur.
Harf jar.
Yeah. No.
Right?
Mansur.
Meaning the word after it is majroor.
Yeah, with the kasra.
Right? Normally, that means kasra. Normally, not always. Could mean a ya, could mean something else, right? But here, It's هذا, it's on this. And هذا never ever changes. If I said هذا رجل مهذب, it would be the same. سعدت هذا. عطفت على هذا. هذا never ever changes. It's always going to be like that. And if I say لا تشربن الماء, this is a negation. Do not drink الماء القدر. Do not drink muddy water. Right? And I took these off. I purposefully took off the adjectives normally so that we wouldn't, or the badal, so that we wouldn't be confused by it. Right? La tashrabanna. This la is the la of negation. And what happens, or not negation, prohibition. The la of prohibition, what does it do to the verb? What does it do to the verb? The la of prohibition. If I want to say la, what do I put on that scene?
مجزوم.
Yeah, مجزوم.
مجزوم is sukoon, right?
Sukoon.
La
Yeah.
tajlis, la takdhib, la taghdab. It's a sukoon. Here, we added a noon in this, a noon at tawkeed. We added noon at tawkeed, a thaqila. Right? We added noon at tawkeed. And noon at tawkeed before that has a fatha. Right? So now, what does this say to us? There's going to come things, right? That, for instance, pronouns, which we have here, right? They're going to come a case like here. So how are we going to make the i'rab of this, right? We're going to say about anta. We're going to say mubtada. We're going to say mubtada. It's the mubtada, right? Mabni ala fatha, because anta never ever changes. Right? Anta never changes. So we're going to say mubtada mabni ala fatha. Fi mahal raf. Fi mahal raf. In the position or condition of being marfu'. Because its condition here, it's marfu', but its sign is not present because anta is mabni. So the sign of raf is not there. We can't tell if it's raf or nasb or jar or jazm. We can't tell any of that. Why? Because it is mabni. And if it's mabni, then we can't see a sign. We don't see a sign of raf or nasb or jar or jazm. But we're going to say this is the mubtada and is mabni ala fatha because anta never changes. Fi mahal raf, in the position or condition of being marfu'. The same thing with sa'adtu ha'ulai. Ha'ulai is what here? What is its function in the sentence?
مفعول به.
Maf'ulun bihi. I helped these. Right? Sa'adtu ha'ulai. I helped these. Ha'ulai is maf'ulun bihi. But here it is. Ha'ulai is ismu ishara. It's a noun that points to something. Right? Mabni ala kasra. It's built upon that kasra and it never changes. Fi mahal nasb maf'ulun bihi, in the condition of being mansub because it is the object of the verb. Ataftu ala hada, I felt mercy upon this. This is a ismu majroor, but we're gonna say hada is ismul ishara. It's a noun which points, right? Mabni ala sukoon, because this hada, that alif has a sukoon, even though we don't write it. Is mabni ala sukoon. There is no movement on that alif. And if there's no movement, then it's sakin, right? The movement is on the ha, the movement is on the that, but there is no haraka, no movement on that alif, so therefore it's a sukoon. So we say mabni ala sukoon fi mahal al-jar. Right? Fi mahal al-jar bi harf jar, due to the harf jar. Right?
Yeah.
Then we say,
okay.
go ahead.
I got the half alif.
La tashrabanna. Right? This should be la tashrab. If we didn't put the emphasis on it. Right? It would be with a sukoon on the back. But because we put the nun at-tawkid, it's now mabni ala fatha. So we'll say fi'l mudari, tashrabana is a fi'l mudari, a present tense verb, mabni ala fatha, because of the fatha, because of the nun at-tawkid. Fi mahali jazm, in the condition of being majzoom. Right? Ba'da la an-nahiya, after the la of an-nahiya. So, la tashrabanna, tashrabana is a present tense verb, mabni ala fatha, due to the nun at-tawkid, in a position of being majzoom because of the la of prohibition. Now, do you have to go through and be able to say all of that? No. If you ask the average Arab, how or why that is, he's not going to know. However, the average Arab is also not speaking proper Arabic, and that's why it's so difficult for us to learn Arabic from the Arabs overseas. And we see when we meet somebody in a corner store that's an Arab, we think we can learn Arabic from them, and we end up learning jacked up stuff because they don't know Arabic. Do we have to know all this? No. But do you need to become familiar with it? Yes, because eventually you're going to want to know it. And the more you know it, the more you have control of the Arabic language, and the more you're going to be able to understand text, and the more proper your speech is going to be. So the qaida here, إذا وقعت كلمة مبنية, if a word which is mabni falls في موضع من مواد الرفع أو نصب أو جر or jazm, if it falls into a position from the positions of being raf or marfu or mansub or majrur or majzoom, then it doesn't change the end of it. Meaning, anta is always going to be anta, hada is always going to be hada, haulai is always going to be haulai, and la tashrabanna is always going to be la tashrabanna. It's not going to change. And you say, and it is said about it that it is in the position of being raf, marfu, or mansub, or majrur, or majzoom, according to the position that it's in the sentence. Clear?
No.
No.
طيب. The next chapter is dealing with words, the fi'l mudari, which has weak endings, meaning a ya, a waw, or an alif as the last part of the verb. And we don't want to get into that because that's a more difficult subject. The main thing that we wanted to talk about today is the fi'l mudari is mu'rab, except if you have the noon and niswa or the noon at-tawkid. And then we wanted to talk about those words which are mabni, those nouns or verbs which are mabni. What happens when they appear in a place which the sign of them isn't clear? For instance, up above we had anta as the mubtada. Right? We know the mubtada is marfu, and the original foundational sign of being marfu is a dhamma. Yet here we have a fatha. So what do we say? anta never changes. So what do we say about it? We say anta is a damir. It's a pronoun. Mabni ala fatta. It's built upon that fatta. Fi mahal raf mubtada. In the position of being marfu because it is the mubtada. We say sa'adtu ha'ulai. Ha'ulai is a ismul ishara. It's a noun which points to something. We say about this that it is mabni ala kasra because it never ever changes no matter where it's at. If we said ha'ulai rijal muhadhabun, ha'ulai became the mubtada, but it has a kasra. It never changes. Right? If I say ataftu ala ha'ulai, right? Here it's majroor. Here it's mansub. Here it's marfu. But it always has ha'ulai, ha'ulai, ha'ulai. Here in this second sentence, we're going to say ha'ulai is ismul ishara, a noun which points to something. Mabni ala kasra. It's built upon a kasra. Fi mahal al-nasb, in the position of being mansub, maf'ulun bihi, because it is the object of the verb. We say about hadha is ismu ishara. Hadha is a ismu ishara, a noun which points to something. Mabni ala sukun, because the alif doesn't have a vowel on it. It's mabni ala sukun fi mahal jar, bi harf jar. It's in the position of being majroor after a preposition. And we say la tashrabanna, la tashrabanna. We say about it that it is fi'l mudari, is a present tense verb. Mabni ala fatha is mabni ala fatha. The ittisalat noon at-tawkid al-thaqila, because it is connected to a noon at-tawkid, a noon of emphasis, the heavy one. Right? Fi mahal al-jazm, in the position of being majzoom. Ba'da la and nahiya, because of the la of prohibition. Now, I don't know how you feel, but 5 years ago when I first went through this book, I was confused probably more than you are today. And I said, why the heck am I learning this stuff? It don't make sense. You know, especially back then, I didn't know the meanings of these words. Sa'adtu, muhadhab, ataftu, noon at-tawkid. I never used that before. Qadir. I didn't know these words. I need to know the words in a sentence more than I need to know this stuff. But so I say that, and you may feel that same way. I'd rather know what this sentence means than know how to break it down. رجل خبر مرفوع بضمة ظاهرة محذب نعت. You know, I'd rather know the meaning of that sentence than how to break it down. However, I say to you 5 years later, I am so happy that I can understand that and I'm able to explain it. So back then I was like, what the heck is this? I don't need to know all that. And you don't have to know it all. But you do need to know the vocabulary. You do. If you tell the average Arab, Anta rajulun muhadhab, if he can speak English, you say translate, they say, you're a kind, well-mannered man. You're a disciplined man. You know, Sa'adtu ha'ulai masakin. I help these poor people. He could tell you that, right? You tell him, man, break it down. I don't know, break it down. What's maf'ulun bi, mansub, majrur? I don't know none of that. Fi mahal raf wa i'rab al muhalli. Well, I don't know all that, right? However, he also is going to make mistakes in his language. If you ask him to say, how would I say I help these poor people? He's going to tell you other than sa'atu ha'ulai al-masakin, right? He's not going to tell you this sentence in the book. When he reads it, he knows it, but he's not going to say it in his speech, right? And if you told him this word, he'd probably change some of these things up. So you don't have to know it all, but you need to become familiar with it. and you need to try to work towards it because you want to be a student of knowledge. You want to be someone who can pick up a book and understand it and help people understand why it's there. And so because of that, you want to learn it, but you don't have to put all your emphasis on it. That's why we deal with this 1 day a week out of 6. Right? But years from now, you say, man, I remember going through all that in the Nahl al-Wadih. You may be going through it in Al-Ajrumiyah. You may be going through it in Qatr al-Nada or something. Whatever the book you're going through, but you're going to remember having done it, and you'll appreciate it, bi'idhnillah. Tayyib? Today was an easy day.
Yeah, Sheikh, I learned this too some years back, but you know, it's good for me to sit down and listen to it again. Now it becomes more clear.
You learned this years ago?
Yeah.
And Allah knows best, you learned it when you didn't need to learn it.
Yeah, then
You don't
then
you didn't speak Arabic and you don't speak Arabic still today. Right?
Yeah.
But you know
Yeah.
why this is this and why is that.
Yes, I do.
And a lot of people want to know grammar and they don't know how to read. That's why we started these classes, because a lot of people focus on grammar too much and they never break out of why this is that and why this is this and all that. No, we need to get away and start reading and understanding. And then
Exactly.
later on, when I understand this sentence, I can break it down what it is. And that will help me and benefit me. This Arabic grammar, Al-Ajrumiyah, Qatr al-Nada, Nahl al-Wadih, is for Arabs. We need to know an amount of it. I'm not saying you don't need any grammar. You need to know a certain amount, especially when you start reading books without vowels.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be so much into this stuff that you don't understand what you're saying, but you can tell me why it is in the position it is and why it's got the vowel on it, or why it doesn't have the noon and why it's got this. All that makes no sense if you don't know what the word itself means.
Yeah.
And
That's one of the reasons why I'm joining the class.
Right.
I want to be able to know the meaning of what I'm reading.
Wallah, it's not just
Not
you.
just to be able to break it down.
It's not just you. It's, man, the majority of brothers I meet. How many brothers I know they've been through Medina Book 3 and they still don't know Arabic.
The
They
same
still
thing.
can't pick up Thalathatul Usul and read it and understand it. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about pick up the explanation of it, which is 500 pages or 150 pages. Pick up the 12 page or 10 page or 6 page, whatever it might be, 21 page, Thalathatul Usul, and read it and understand it. They can't do it, yet they've been through Medina Book 3. Makes no sense.
Wallah.
So now we're reading to learn Arabic. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, may Allah grant us success.
Ameen ya Allah.
Inshallah, I'll see you brothers tomorrow with Thalathatul Usul, and maybe some of this will come up, and we'll see you, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.